Whoa. Okay, I should not even begin working on this video till I get a haircut. Alright, we have just began the third of the 5 books of Moses. This week's Torah portion is called Vayikra. That means, and he called his mother after he didn't speak to her in a long time. And she decided that instead of saying thank you for calling, she'll just scream. I'm not saying anything personal for my life. I call my mother all the time. But we're talking about God, and he called to Moses. God called to Moses. But usually the Torah says, and God spoke to Moses saying. And over here we're suddenly mentioning that God called to Moses, and then he spoke to him. What's with this calling Moses? Like, what's going on?
Well, I'm pretty okay, I guess. I was feeling a little bit down yesterday, but then my grandmother called me, and also she sent me this awesome package.
No, I wasn't asking you what's going on. I want to know what's up with God calling Moses. What is that supposed to mean? If he spoke to him, he obviously called him and said, I want to speak to you, or something like that. And if he called him, he spoke to him. I mean, unless he called him like my father sometimes calls me. Hey, Ta, what's up? The 11th century commentator Rashi explains that this happened every time God spoke to Moses. Apparently, every single time that God addressed Moses, he called to him and said, Moses, Moses. I love how I subconsciously made my voice deeper when trying to do God's voice, when that's not even like a little bit possible. Okay, now my head is racing with philosophical questions. This calling to Moses expressed God's love for him. He called to him affectionately, saying, Moses, Moses. The first Chabad Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, points out something a little bit deeper. When the Torah records that God called out to Moses, it doesn't say that God called to Moses. It says, and he called to Moses, not using any particular name for God. The reason for this is that the names of God are expressions of God. And the love that God has isn't from any particular expression in God's all-encompassing being. Rather, it stems from God's very essence, to the point that we don't even have a name with which to call it. God didn't love Moses because Moses was awesome, even though he was. Rather, this love is from God's essence. It has nothing to do with the fact that Moses is Moses. It's totally unconditional. And it wasn't just for Moses, and isn't just for Moses. Every single Jew is loved unconditionally by God. And it is of this love that the Torah refers with, and he called to Moses. Moses, Moses. Jew, Jew. Before we even start talking Torah, talking the rules, talking what I want you to do, no, I love you unconditionally. Before we even start talking about the rules. I just said that, right? That was redundant. This is not a joke. Know that God loves you. And may we not just have to know it, but may we see God's love with the revelation of Moshiach now. And to speed up that revelation, to speed up that process, it's important that we take something upon ourselves. Realize the only perfect being is God. And God is overlooking your faults with unconditional love. How should you view the faults of others? Can you view the faults of others? Through our increased love to our fellow and increased joy, we will merit to see Moshiach made